Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who. Last time around we had the Shakespeare Code. What was that one about?
Very well written. It was about a group of women who ostensibly were aliens, but they were essentially seen as witches. They were trying to get Shakespeare to write a new ending to the lost play Love's Labour's Won, so that when the actors spoke the words, it would open up a rift that would allow all the rest of the witches to come through, but they were able to thwart them. I don't remember all the particulars, but I do remember at the end of it, I was talking about how I thought it was very well written, incorporating a lot of Shakespearean quotes, some from Shakespeare himself, some from the Doctor. And one of them, Martha said, "Well, you've already written about witches," and Doctor went, "He hasn't written that one yet." So it was very well. I don't want to say researched, but it incorporated a lot of late 14th century, early 15th century stuff that for historians, amateur historians, history majors like us, just made it that much better.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what the fandom thinks of the episode. We get some episodes like The Unquiet Dead, and we're both like, "Oh, that was a spectacular, 10 out of 10 episode." And then we get to the fandom, what they think, and they're like, "Yeah, it was all right." So I hear that a lot. I mean, it's the people that aren't as interested in history, which is weird to watch a time travel show and not be that interested in history.
Yeah.
But then again, Doctor Who itself has had a real struggle with being interested in history. They take more of the sci-fi elements and going to the future and seeing aliens than going back in time and seeing historical figures. Yeah. So it's difficult with this show.
Now, I'm not going to say I don't understand it, and maybe it's, again, the difference between the British audience and the American audience. I always reference Star Trek. Star Trek would essentially take on historical problems, but in science fiction terms. They would land on a planet where the people were 1920s gangsters, or the Roman Empire, or whereas the Klingons represented the Russians of the 1960s and 70s, that sort of thing. And it strikes me that a lot of the alien stuff that we see in Doctor Who doesn't have that much even social commentary. I mean, it's good sci-fi. I'm not complaining that it's not good sci-fi, but I always like to see some kind of underpinning, some context, things that Gene Roddenberry did very, very well. And again, whoever wrote the Shakespeare Code, to me, had incorporated enough of that to make it not just an ordinarily good episode, but a really, again, I said I thought the writing on that episode was brilliant. So that's just me, my opinion.
Yeah, it just kind of depends with Doctor Who, like episode to episode, what they want to talk about. Like the Third Doctor's era was chock full of, well, it was mainly about like current day issues.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing because I remember I watched a video talking about the second season of Star Trek Picard that we didn't watch because we didn't care enough. And in that season, they like go back in time to 2024, and they're talking about all these like actual current issues of our time. And it's like, okay, you can do that, but one of the things with Star Trek was like, they would comment on things happening in the real world, but it would always be on another planet.
Yeah.
It's like, and sometimes it'd be a little on the nose, if they made an episode now, it's like, like the Enterprise gets to this planet and they're having some trouble. There's a planet that's really near, and it's not doing too well. It's not amazing, but I mean, it's okay. But a lot of people from that planet, they're trying to leave that planet, go over to the other planet. And, the people on this planet are like, well, we don't know about this, like some people are for it, some people are against it. Maybe they have a force field, and it's like, that's incredibly on the nose, but it's still on another planet.
Yeah.
And it's still something of, talking about current issues or future issues or past issues or what have you. So
now, the one drawback to that, again, for an American audience, is like that episode with the female prime minister, the one that was supposed to be a parody of the Iron Lady Margaret Thatcher era.
Yeah.
We didn't get that as well because we are not that immersed in British politics.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go back to World War II or World War I or any of the other things where we have more of a general knowledge rather than a very specific knowledge of the early 1980s British politics, that's also, I mean, I understand that is, as a writer, as a director, that's very difficult because if your audience goes beyond the British Isles or, for example, the United States, you cannot tailor it to something that is so specific that people from another country are not going to understand it.
Yeah, so... Well, don't worry, we will get to episodes far in the future where we're also going to be commenting on political figures of today who maybe, say, last week weren't political figures of today, and now things have changed again, so... And it'll all get very on the nose, so... Anyway.
Okay, anyway.
We're also doing Torchwood this week,
Oh, good.
by the way. So stay tuned. On Wednesday, we'll have episode 2, our reaction to episode 2, which everybody has been excited for in the comments. I've been kind of worried that you guys have been giving away the game a little bit on the second episode. Remember, he reads these comments. So, in fact, he probably reads these comments more than I read these comments.
Yeah.
So try not to give away the game on any upcoming episodes. But honestly, it's the only real infamous episode of Torchwood that we're going to watch. All the others are not worth it. Like, for the most part, the rest of the Torchwood episodes are all going to be the really good episodes of Torchwood. Yeah. But we'll get to that on Wednesday. Or for us in like an hour or so. But yeah, you got anything else?
It's warming up. It's as of this morning, it was 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Ooh, it's a heat wave.
Yep. Winter has ended. It lasted all of 2 days. It's the thing that I hate because it's like winter, you have the extreme cold, but that doesn't last too long, at least here. But then in the summer, it's the opposite because the extreme heat lasts for 3 months. Yeah. And extreme heat, I would classify the 90s as extreme heat. And that's not where it stays most of the time. Most of the time, it goes over 100.
When I was teaching Oklahoma history, I think I noted that the average summertime temperature during the day is like 95. But when you think about that, that means if that's the average, it could be as low as 85, it could be as high as 105. And yes, we do tend to nowadays, in the last 20, 25 years, I've been in Oklahoma since 1975, so I've been here 50 years. It is much warmer in the summer times now than it was in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. It's just too warm. And especially too, once you get to a certain temperature, the air conditioner doesn't work properly anymore. So it's just, it's a whole mess. Yeah. And the good news is it'll only get worse from here on out.
Talked about the end of winter. Although the temperatures are going to remain in the 40s, if I recall correctly, the forecast for next week, we're already going to start seeing thunderstorms. Right? First week of February. There used to be into late March and early April before we started seeing thunderstorms. Now we're going to start seeing thunderstorms and even possibly tornadoes in the southern plains in February.
And it's interesting. A few episodes back, I think we mentioned that, the tornadoes that were going off in the first week of November. So that winter really is just January now.
Yeah.
December is not really winter. It's just nothing's happening in December.
We actually broke the record for the number of tornadoes in Oklahoma in a single year last year. The previous record, I think, was 147. We had 152 in 2024.
Oh, yeah. So we can't even move to Canada because now they want to take that too. So
and by the way, the average number of tornadoes before the 2020s was about 55, 56 per year, and now we're doubling that literally in the last 4 or 5 years.
So, everything sucks, so let's forget about it and watch Doctor Who.
Let's watch some Gridlock.
Alrighty.
They're gonna get in. There's no stopping them.
Seriously, American Gothic?
The police are on their way. I promise I've sounded.
Maybe they're cosplayers.
The weather is at 36 degrees and it's blue skies all the way home. This is Sally Calypso signing off. Missing you already.
By the way, most people who see American Gothic assume that's a farmer and his wife. But I read just recently it's actually a farmer and his sister.
Just one trip. That's what I said. One trip in the TARDIS and then home. Although, I suppose we could stretch the definition. So one trip into the past, one trip into the future. How do you fancy that?
No complaints from me.
How about a different planet?
Can we go to yours?
No.
The skies are burnt orange. With a citadel enclosed in a mighty glass dome. Shining under the twin suns. Beyond that, the mountains go on forever. Slopes of deep red grass. Capped with snow.
Don't remember it looking like Mars.
Although, technically it's 15 York original, so it's New York. One of the most dazzling cities ever built.
And they've been here before.
Well, Martha hasn't been here before. What? Martha hasn't been here before, so it all works out.
He has arrived.
The face of Bo.
Should I do?
Find him before it's too late.
Good old face.
You're taking me to the same planets that you took her.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing. Ever heard the word rebound? So that's the human race 5 billion years in the future. Off their heads on chemicals.
Sorry, I'm really sorry, we just need three. That's Cash up, close down, and pack your bags.
Why is that then?
Because as soon as I've found her alive and well, and I will find her alive and well, then I'm coming back. And this street is closing tonight!
I think I'd pack all my money just in case. In case he's right.
This will be as fast as we can. We'll take the motorway to the Brooklyn flyover, and then after that it's going to take a while, because then there's no fast lane, just ordinary roads, but at least it's direct.
It's only 10 miles. How long's it going to take? About 6 years.
What?
Eh.
This woman stood in the exhaust fumes for a solid 20 minutes. By the time they found her, her head had swollen to 50 feet.
Oh, you're making it up.
A 50-foot head. Just think of it. Imagine picking that nose.
Stop it, that's disgusting.
What? Did you never pick your nose?
Brant, we're moving.
Right, I'm there. I'm on it.
Sorry, I'm the doctor.
Medical man! My name is Thomas Kincaid Brannigan, and this is the bane of my life, the lovely Valerie.
Nice to meet
Thomas
you.
Kincaid, the
And that's the
painter.
rest of the family behind you.
Oh, that's nice.
That's kind of terrifying, but maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
When's the next lay-by?
6 months.
Eh.
That is Houston, Boston,
Anyone knows. There we go.
New York.
New York,
Oh, thanks.
Dallas. Those are the places we've been with traffic like that.
Yeah.
Got self-replicating fuel, muscle stimulants for exercise, and there's a chemical toilet at the back, and all waste products are recycled as food.
Ugh.
Okay.
Could I ask what entrance did they use? Where were we?
Pharmacy town.
Pharmacy town, about 20 minutes ago. Let's have a look.
Just my luck to marry a car spotter.
In the light? Call them on this thing. We've got the number, Diamond 6.
But not off the designated fast lane. It's a different class.
Try the police. They put me on hold.
There's a class
You'll have
system
to keep trying.
on the motorway.
There's no one else.
It's terrifying.
Thank you.
I think this is what hell is.
Mr. Cassini, this is the doctor. Tell me, how long have you been driving on the motorway?
Oh, we were amongst the first. It's been 23 years now.
But in all that time, have you ever seen a police car?
We're not abandoned. Not while we have each other.
This is for all of you out there on the roads. We're so sorry. Drive safe.
Lee.
Meh. This might be the most terrifying episode of Doctor Who. Ugh.
Look after this. I love that coat. Janis Joplin gave me that coat.
But you can't jump.
If it's any consolation, Valerie, right now I'm having kittens.
Samantha. She must mean an awful lot to you.
Hardly know her. I was too busy showing off.
Who the hell are you?
Sorry, Motorway Foot Patrol. I'm doing a survey. How are you enjoying your motorway?
Well, not very much. Junction 5's been closed for 3 years.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted. Have a nice day. Thank you for your cooperation. Your comments have been noted. Do you mind if I borrow this? Not my colour, but thank you very much.
That's what I first used during the lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
Don't mind me.
I mean, I get you don't want to stay in the air, but you gotta move forward a little bit.
Try the next one.
They're always closed.
We're stuck down here. There's something else out there in the fog.
Can't you hear it?
That's the air vents.
Jehovah, what are you?
Some stupid kid. Get out of here.
Whatever. You got any water?
Certainly. Never let it be said I've lost my manners.
Is this the last layer?
We're right at the bottom. Nothing below us but a fast lane.
Can we drive down?
There's only 2 of us. You need 3 to go down.
Couldn't we just cheat?
Well, I'd love to, but it's an automated system. The wheel would lock.
Excuse me?
Does it count how many hearts you have?
What are those shapes?
They're alive.
What the hell are they?
Craps.
Macra.
Oh no.
Maybe it's the engine, the sound, or the heat, or the light. I don't know. If you turn everything off, they might not be able to find us.
So I hope they explain how the Macra got here.
I don't even know if they explained what the macro were.
Wasn't that the second Doctor?
Yeah. It's a long time ago.
Oh, it's like New Times Square in here. For goodness sake.
I've invented a sport.
Doctor, you're a hard man to find.
No guns. I'm not having guns.
I only brought this in case of pirates. Doctor, you've got to come with me.
Do I know you?
You haven't aged at all. Time has been less kind to me.
Novice Hayne! Whoa, hold on, get off. Last time we met, you were breeding humans for experimentation.
I've sought forgiveness, Doctor. The situation is even worse than you can imagine. Transform.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare!
Bloody hell.
It's the craziest day of that guy's life.
All of them. Everyone, what happened?
A new chemical. A new mood. They called it bliss. Everyone tried it. They couldn't stop. A virus mutated inside the compound and became airborne. Everything perished. Even the virus in the end. It killed the world in 7 minutes flat. There was just enough time.
Doctor. knew you would come.
It's a very powerful face.
So he saved them.
The fate of Bo wired himself into the mainframe. He's giving his life force just to keep things running.
There are planets out there you could have called for help.
The last act of the Senate was to declare New Earth unsafe. The automatic quarantine lasts for 100 years.
I didn't really think. I just followed the doctor and... They don't even know where I am. My mum and dad. If I died here, they'd never know.
So, who is he then? This doctor?
I don't know. Well, not really. There's so much he never says.
But that means that the only hope right now is a complete stranger. Well, that's no use.
Doctor,
Yeah, hold on, not now.
I give you my last.
Hey, look after him! Don't you go dying on me, you big old face! You've got to see this.
What is it? What is it? It's the sunlight.
Sorry, no, Sally Calypso. She was just a hologram. My name's the Doctor.
He's a magician.
And this is an order. Everyone drive up.
There's daylight.
Oh, that'd be so blinding.
Doctor?
Over here.
Doctor, what happened out there? What's that?
That was a weird thing to walk in
Oh,
on.
it's all right. Come say hello. And this is Hayley. She's a cat. Don't worry.
I am the last of my kind, as you are the last of yours, Doctor.
That's why we have to survive. Both of us. Don't go.
I must, but know this, Time Lord. You are not alone.
That's how I want to die. I just want to say something cryptic and then die. Not alone, eh?
All closed down.
Happy?
Happy.
We can go to the Overcity.
Start again.
Rent is so
I think
cheap
I'm
now,
almost
right now.
All right, you staying?
So you talk to me properly, yes? You said last of your kind. What does that mean?
It really doesn't matter.
You don't talk. You never say. Why not?
I lied to you. Because I liked it. I could pretend. Just for a bit, I could imagine they were still alive. My people fought a race called the Daleks. For the sake of all creation. And they lost. They're all gone now. My family. My friends. Even that sky. Oh, you should have seen it, that old planet. The second sun would rise in the south and the mountains would shine. The leaves on the trees were silver. When they caught the light every morning, it looked like a forest on fire. When the autumn came, green glowed through the branches like the sun.
Like a good old traumatic episode at the beginning of the companionship.
Now, did the Ninth Doctor mention the Time War to Rose?
At some point, I don't remember when, but Yeah. I don't know, because he was kind of cryptic about that too.
Yeah.
But it was sort of a thing. I mean, in the first episode, I think he said, like, or in the second episode, because they had the whole thing of seeing the destruction of Earth, and he said, that's what happened to my planet, basically. My planet is gone. So it was sort of trickled out over that season.
Yeah.
So, and that really came to a head with the Dalek episode.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so very interesting religious aspect to all of this. The face of Bo giving his life to save the planet. There's no disguising that. But again, after all this time, the cryptic message that he gives to the traveler is, you're not alone.
I mean, they originally said that, like, because they set this up last season, at the beginning of last season, where it's like the face of Bo will give his final words to what they said was the lonely god, which they interpreted as the Doctor. So I guess that's the thing, is that he is the lonely god, but he is not alone, and that's the secret that only the face of Bo knows. So but yeah, it's an interesting, it's certainly an interesting episode. I don't think they ever really come back to New Earth after this. I think this sort of caps off the New Earth trilogy, I guess. But it is interesting to go from, the Earth was destroyed, and then they created New Earth because they were getting nostalgic and stuff. Started doing that. And it's like, okay, well, everything's good. The humans, they made a new Earth. It's all nice. It's all happy. They're dead. they were. The entire world was killed in 7 minutes. Luckily, there were some people that were saved by the face of Bo. But it's an interesting note in this continuation of the New Earth saga.
And Bo, the face of Bo, had to know that the Macra were down there, or did the Macra come after this? That's the thing. The Macra, for those of us who have seen the classic Doctor Who, but how many of the people who only picked up Doctor Who with the Ninth Doctor would they have just simply said, "Oh, the Macra"? He explained they were living across the galaxy, eating gas. And so.
Yeah. Well, as that exact person who watched this with no context of what the Macra was, I was just like, okay, that's just the strange crab creature things. Then I get comments that are like, oh yeah, they were in a second Doctor episode. I'm like, what are you talking about? How on earth? So yeah, it kind of feels like they're just kind of called that because they can be called that. I mean, It's like, maybe it was just easy enough to make a CG model of a crab and just paste that in everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no real tie-in to that old episode. It really just is. There could have been any number of monster down there.
Yeah.
They just decided to make it the Macra for some reason.
Yeah.
And presumably, I guess everything gets closed off, so all that exhaust starts building up within the motorway, and then that attracts the Macra down there, and that's why they're down there, consuming all the fumes and everything. So, and I guess maybe because they said, New Earth was deemed unsafe, so the quarantine would last 100 years and no outside planet would come there except the Macra. Not to help, just to consume, basically.
Now, the other thing is, we know they're consuming the gas, and yet they were trying to catch the car that Martha and the other two people were in. So, are they carnivorous?
Yeah.
Are they simply trying to get rid of that car because it's in their way? Again, I like the story, don't get me wrong, but adding in the Macra and explaining that they feed off of gas and then having them trying to crush the car that Martha's in is a little jarring. It didn't make as much sense.
It feels like everything with the writing really went into honestly, I guess the world building, coming up with this idea, building upon New Earth from the last time we saw it. And it's like, okay, the motorway, it's like, what does a motorway look like in, 5 billion years? It looks like hell. And it's like, okay, well, what if you're trapped on the motorway and stuff? And so it's coming up with all these different things, and one thing leads to another until finally, he writes it all, and it's like, okay, but what's the actual, conflict as to why this needs to happen now? And it's just like, maybe there's monsters down there, feeding off of the gas and stuff, and so they just... It's the one just underdeveloped part of the episode.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, why couldn't Bo open the Skyway himself? It was because he obviously had the energy, and you would think, being billions of years old, he would know the technology behind it.
I don't think that was it. I don't think it was his energy. It's his energy that kept... that closed off the motorway while everything, even the virus itself, died off over ground. And he only I guess had enough energy left to protect himself and Novice Haim. And then after that, he could not then open the motorway again, I guess. Okay. And so it took the Doctor rerouting, I guess, all power, figuring everything out to actually open the doors.
And then one last thing. When Novice Haim saw the Doctor, she said, "You haven't changed a bit, you haven't aged." But
it is about 25 years after the last episode.
And he was there with Rose?
Yes.
Okay, because I remember the Ninth Doctor was... So I couldn't remember if he...
Yeah, it was the hospital episode.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see Novice Haim or the sister cats in that first episode with the face of Bo. Because that was all, Cassandra, and they were still at Earth. And then the next episode was, in season 2, was going to New Earth. There was the hospital where the face of Bo was held, and they had all the, virus zombies, basically, and cleaning up all of that. Then this is supposed to be about 25 years after that. Okay. When so Novice Haim has aged 25 years. It's a little hard to portray that in cat makeup, but they tried. They tried to make that work.
And you probably only vaguely remember this, but our cat, Maggie, was 19 when she died.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, other than being a little bit larger, she pretty much looked the same the way she did when she was a year old.
Yeah. So it is one of those things, you're trying to get the timing on the episode, but yeah. As for the other stuff, it's a very interesting concept. It is kind of, again, sort of the, I guess, on-the-nose sci-fi problem of what do we do in a futuristic setting, And it's like, I want to imagine that RTD was just stuck in traffic one day for hours, and then he was just like, I have an idea for a Doctor Who episode. So let's just put it, it's in the middle of, New York, which is perfect, and it's just exponentially, what is traffic like 5 billion years later? And it's like, yep, that sounds and looks terrible. So
but I also, again, very and it wasn't very subtle, but interesting that they did inject that the face of Bo, or whoever was in charge, essentially gave these people hope. They've got their songs, they've got their religion, and the idea is, yes, it seems like your life is completely stuck in this traffic jam, but someday you will exchange all of this for your crown when you get to the end. Now, again, that one group that got crushed by the macro that said, turn around, you don't understand, there is no getting off, we're just stuck here. They had obviously been there and realized that, and were trying to warn everybody else. But again, when you have a society that is that regimented, that regulated, there has to be hope. I mean, there are times throughout history, hate to quote Karl Marx, but he said, religion is the opiate of the masses. You have to give people hope. They have to know that there is something better waiting for them, or they despair and give up hope, and then that would wreck the system.
Yeah. Honestly, the problem with this whole system, because they said everything was automated, and in 100 years it would have automatically opened that, so whoever was still down there would have been freed at that point. But because the whole process was automated, the problem was the fast lane that was underneath. If the fast lane was on top, where they did show a couple times there was space above all the cars. Yeah. So if the fast lane was up there wouldn't have been this problem. But because the fast lane was designated below all the other cars, it was just within the reach of the macra. But if it wasn't that, then there wouldn't have actually been a problem, other than, obviously these people are trapped for 100 years, but they would have all just stayed in a traffic jam for 100 years, and eventually the doors would have opened, they would have all gone out, and then they would have realized they were the only people left on the planet. And the face of Bo had died 70 years ago, so...
but there's also a kind of an undercurrent there of interplanetary travel. For right now, the object is not only to get back to the moon, but to get to Mars. Because, we could go to Venus, but it's simply not habitable. So if we go to Mars, whereas a trip to the moon is going to take 4 or 5 days with current technology, a trip to Mars is going to take 18 months.
Yeah.
And literally, if you landed on Mars, turned around and came back the same day, it would be 3 years from the time you launched to the time you got back home.
Yeah.
And we simply don't have the technology right now to accommodate 3 years of interplanetary flight. So, the idea that these people are going to literally have children, and their children will have children, and then a 4th generation will be the ones, if they're lucky, when the Skyway opens up and they'll be able to get out. So it's kind of a subtle reminder that even in the future, the technology that we know has to be available for us to get to other planets is still going to be a multi-generational travel.
Oh, yeah.
What was it, the Wall-E, where the people left the Earth and had gone up into space, but they literally had just, become totally inactive.
Yeah.
So, So, there's a nice little subtle undertone of that. Again, I like the episode overall, but it wasn't as well written as the Shakespeare Code.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing with the whole going to Mars thing, because if they can properly do travel to Mars, I'm going to guess that by the time they do that, I'm going to be your age. At which point, either I will be designated too old to go off planet, or I can barely go on an airplane at the age of 27. I don't think I'm going to be able to go on a spaceship. So even if it's possible, I'm probably not leaving this planet. So, but there is also a part of me that thinks, you know what, that's okay. All the people that are currently in charge can go to a different planet and leave us here to be away from them.
What's kind of astounding is, and I've mentioned this before, my grandmother, my mother's mother, was alive when Wilbur and Orville Wright got the first powered flight off the ground. Sustained powered flight. She was also alive in 1969 when we landed on the moon. So in the space of less than 70 years, we went from never having really flown before to putting 2 human beings on another planetary object. And yet, in the 56 years since then, we haven't even gone back to the moon, and we're no closer to getting to Mars. So it's interesting how the technology that got us from the Wright brothers to Neil Armstrong has not then exponentially increased to get us to the next planet.
Well, and I guess that's another thing, and it kind of relates back to this episode, but you kind of look at this episode, and it's like, technology has obviously progressed. You know, they have flying cars and such like that, but clearly they're still running on some sort of a fossil fuel to create all of that exhaust. And then, you know, when you see like their screens and stuff, or how they communicate with each other, and it's like, well, it's a hologram, and it's like, okay, a hologram is something that we're trying to create today. This is 5 billion years in the future. It's like we can't even fathom, like, what did Earth look like 5 billion years ago? It's like, you know, between that and now, it's like, wow, there is such a difference. But it's like, between now and this, there's not too much of a difference, honestly.
Yeah.
You've still got people in their little shacks selling stuff, you know, that you've got cars, you've got fossil fuels. Whose fossils? I have no idea.
And what's odd about that is they had anti-grav to keep them up, but in order to move forward, they had to use what they said was a recurring way of making fossil fuel.
Yeah.
It strikes me that if you've got anti-grav to lift you up, you can use maglev to get you forward and backwards. So
yeah,
I mean, we're picky.
But it's an interesting thing, because on the one hand you can be like, well, you know, the human race has not progressed that much, you know, in 5 billion years. But then you can also think, but maybe that slightly makes sense. You know, they have this like weird hodgepodge of technology, and it's just like, maybe. I mean, in the same way that it's like, you know, from the Wright brothers to the moon, that's an incredible thing that happened. But from the first time we go to the moon to now, there's not much. Gone back like 1 or 2 times, you know, or however many times, but that's about it, and we're no closer to getting up to Mars. And it's just like, what happened? You'd think we would just keep going and going. I mean, that's why Back to the Future 2 has flying cars. That didn't happen.
And just a minor point here. 5 billion years in the Earth's past would have been about the time that the Arachnos were, because the Earth, as if I recall correctly, is only about 4.5. The Earth itself is only about 4.5 billion years old. Humankind, the way we understand humankind, really only goes back a couple of 100,000 years.
Yeah, that's true. I was getting all my numbers mixed up.
Yeah, and the fact that 8,000 years ago, we literally did not have any form of civilization. We had cultures, but it was 6,000 BC when we begin to see the very first, what we would now think of as civilizations, that there's a form of government, a form of education, a form of religion, a form of writing, that sort of thing. When you have the Egyptians, you have the Mesopotamians, you have the Harappans, the Indus River Valley, and then ancient China. We still don't know how far back the cultures in North and South America go. Probably maybe about 14,000 years ago. But again, we don't see advanced civilizations, what we'd call advanced civilizations, until you get to the Olmec and the Toltec and the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Incas and that sort of thing. And even those only go back 2,000 or 3,000 years. So this is history geek talk, so never mind us.
Well, because it's an interesting thing. There's in DC Comics, there's a villain named Vandal Savage, and he was on one of the Arrowverse TV shows, and they said he was about 5,000 years old, so it put him about at ancient Egypt and stuff. And I thought, okay, well, that was kind of interesting. But when I looked up the actual character in the comics, they said he's actually 50,000 years old, and I thought, what is he from? Like, he's not from a civilization then. if he's 50,000 years old, so yeah. Anyway,
we're rambling, as we do.
Yeah. The only other thing to talk about, I would say, is Martha and the trauma of the episode. Like, it was in this episode, I thought, I guess her last 2 adventures weren't exactly traumatic. I mean, maybe the first episode a little bit, but it's like, this is a first proper traumatizing Doctor Who adventure, which is always good for a companion. But I like that, she finally put her foot down. It's like, you're not telling me anything. We've gone to the past, we've gone to the future, and I still don't know anything about you other than you're a guy in a box that can solve things. You know, it's like she had that little bit of hope in the doctor, but even still, she was like, I don't know him at all. He won't open up to me.
Yeah.
So I like that she finally just put her foot down, and he did tell her about being the last of the Time Lords and everything. So, and especially too, because, you know, at the beginning of the episode is kind of played for a joke, but when it's like, well, you're bringing me to the same place that you brought your last person. It's like, well, that just sounds like a rebound, basically. And it's like, yeah, you know, at the beginning of this episode, he says, you know, I promised you one trip, and then that was it. But we can stretch the definition a little bit. And it's like, you're not, even still, you know, it's been 4 episodes since Rose left, and it's like, you're still not, you haven't moved on. And that's one thing to not move on, but it's like, we need to get somewhere. So I'm glad that she put her foot down on that. I guess that's pretty much that. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
All right, then we are going to take a 5-minute break and then record Torchwood, which will be fun. And yeah, in 2 days you can watch our reaction to the next Torchwood episode. Yeah, I guess that is pretty much it. With all of that being said, we're Alex and Dan from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of our Doctor Who modern reactions, as well as a playlist with every Doctor Who reaction that's on the channel. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.